In Mayfield, there is a dividing line, separating the homes lost from the homes that can be saved. Casey France is on what you might call the lucky side.
Particles of tree limbs or whatever, and it busted holes. It knocked it all the way through the wall.
Here's a closer look.
You can just see how it just busted holes and busted the wood.
The walls were shredded by debris as an EF4 tornado plowed through the center of town on December 10th.
All the windows was busted out.
France's father, Larry, is replacing the door frames. The father-son duo are local contractors hired by the owner of this triplex.
I don't know. What do you think, Casey? 2 or 3 weeks, maybe more.
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 weeks.
Casey and Larry France have a lot of work ahead of them, but they know as soon as they finish, the families living here can move back in.
What the tornado didn't take is so damaged that this will probably be the first building that you see from downtown Mayfield.
So that's the lucky side.
You can see
Molly Hughes' home,
our TV was there,
is on the other.
and it came in through the window and it hit the TV.
In a few minutes, it's going to be torn down.
And there was part of another house in the TV.
It's one of the countless number of homes in Mayfield that can't be saved.
Get to the house, see what's going on, what's damaged.
Hughes was at work and her 6-year-old son was with a relative when the tornado hit.
It's on that back corner over there. There's so much damage to it. Stepping cracks that are literally inches apart. Brick pushed in and pulled out. You can't repair that.
48 days later, it's coming down. Hughes has been staying with her older sister, Barbara Anderson.
Exactly what are big sisters for?
Anderson's truck is the last possession they are salvaging from the property before large equipment rolls in.
And there's like no place for people to live in Mayfield anymore. It's pretty much disaster. So it's a little much.
And then they were like, well, would you be interested in this? I'm like, yes, I actually would, because I'm tired of being moved around.
Hughes says she's lined up to receive a live-in trailer purchased by the state.
I'd swore that we would stay in this house for the rest of our lives. This would be our home. And we wouldn't move again. I'm not moving from the property. May not have the house, but I'm hoping to get another one rebuilt.
Yes, Molly Hughes lost her home, but regardless of any imaginary line and what side of it she may be on, Hughes says she's lucky to be alive. In Mayfield, Jonathon Gregg, Spectrum News. In the days since December 10th, a dominating sound echoes throughout Dawson Springs.
Every day but Sunday. Well, because the first month, even on Sunday.
In this small town, pounding nails is the sound of progress, and Kevin O'Reilly's home is coming along.
So I ran into the bedroom and I jumped on top of my wife and I just hugged her as hard as I could, and she said, well, what are we gonna do?
O'Reilly says he and his immediate neighbors escaped the brunt of the massive tornado because their block is on a downslope.
All the roof was torn up. There was big holes in it. You could stick your hand through the holes, some of them, because there was just pieces of metal and everything.
A few blocks to the north and homes were destroyed. O'Reilly braced for the worst, and in that moment, he was scared.
I've been scared twice in my whole life. 6 years ago, a man told me I had cancer, and it scared me. And then December 10th of last year, that tornado came. It scared me. I thought I was going to lose my life, my wife, everything we had.
So O'Reilly fared better than expected. His roof was patched a week ago, and new siding is going up on this day. And as far as his diagnosis,
I'm in remission. I'm in remission.
Amid all the heartache in this small town, there are many reasons why residents are grateful. In Dawson Springs, Jonathon Gregg, Spectrum News. It only took 7 years to reach this point.
This is actually a fairway driver.
Since 2015, Arrowhead Disc Golf Course on Scenic Drive in Louisville has grown. From a few clunky homemade baskets,
that is a hole one's tee pad,
to a nationally respected 27-hole recreational destination.
My husband and son, they made homemade baskets out of, what were those, barrels? And they made the chains out of hoses.
Vivian Wyatt says what started as a father-son project quickly adopted a following of disc golfers like Sean Dunn.
There you go.
Just a very easy little putter or mid-range. Float it straight across. Should be easy too.
Hand-built launch pads, bridges, and steps are proof of the family's dedication to the sport and appreciation for those who come to play.
This is the Walk of Fame. These are golfers who have helped us.
But of all the course fixtures crafted by hand, this closed sign is the only one that feels out of place.
And then in October, we got the notification violation. They told us to shut down operations.
Sparked by a neighbor's complaint over too much parking on the Wyatt's property, the family says their course was shut down by the Louisville Metro Office of Planning and Design.
It kind of just says that we're operating Arrowhead Disc Golf Course from an R4 neighborhood address.
According to the city's letter, the Wyatts could no longer operate a disc golf course on their own property.
And all of this is MSD.
Or the adjacent land managed by Metro Sewer and Drainage.
He's the chief engineer at MSD.
Although a separate letter from MSD supports the Wyatts.
And they said they had no problems with it.
In order to continue, the family says they would need a conditional use permit, but that would require an expensive surveyor to visit the property.
I called, and it's like $3,000 to $5,000. And they couldn't give us a guarantee that we would reopen after spending that money, so I'm not going to spend that money.
Roger Wyatt says they aren't trying to rattle anyone's chains. They're just hoping for a more realistic path to reopening.
Relook at it, you know. They could maybe ease up a little bit on some of the requirements.
But for the moment, this family says their wooded disc golf course is wrapped in red tape.
To turn somebody away from something like that's pretty sad.
In Louisville, Jonathon Gregg, Spectrum News. No matter where you've been in your life, near or far, anyone on the road to recovery has a well-traveled heart.
Oh, every day. I've sat and wondered when the day will come when I don't think about it, honestly, and I don't know when. I think it'll be years down the road, and you'll still think about this probably every day.
It's been 180 days since Mayfield was hit.
It skated over me enough. It ripped my roof completely off.
Since Larry Nichols was hit by an EF4 tornado, Nichols is one of the few families left in this neighborhood on Mayfield's northeast side.
In the whole neighborhood, there's only maybe, block radius or 2 block radius, maybe 4 people at the most. So.
Nichols says his next door neighbor left after the storm and never came back.
I think everything the lady owns is still in her house too, I'm pretty sure.
And 6 months later, you can see the neighbor's clothes on hangers and family photos still stuck to the fridge.
I don't know really the story, or anything like that goes, but there's still a lot of people who lost everything.
Not 20 yards behind Nichols' back door, 3-year-old Jalil Dunbar was killed when his entire home collapsed around him. Dunbar was one of 24 Kentuckians who died in Graves County from the storm.
It just kills me knowing that a lady was laying over there, probably holding her dead kid. That's tough to swallow.
In Mayfield, in this moment, you can see homes being built. Next to empty lots where homes used to stand. Next to houses too badly damaged to be saved, yet abandoned up until this point. It's an unnatural scene created by Kentucky's deadliest natural disaster. 180 days later, Dawson Springs residents share many of the same views.
It's been a journey. It's hard to look around and hardly see anything,
Volunteers from Georgia are rebuilding Judy Gregg's roof.
And as you can see, our house that we got now is where all the people are.
Except Gregg and her husband only recently purchased this home.
Back porch, and this would have been in front of our house.
On the night of December 10th, Gregg and her family huddled in the bathroom of their longtime home, just a few blocks away. They would be stuck there for hours.
It was just, there was so much debris around our whole house that we couldn't get out, you know.
Hundreds of homes were damaged in a town of just 2,500. 6 months later, Gregg is one of the few in her neighborhood still here.
Some are rebuilding, some can't afford to. It was depressing for a while, you know, because you don't see nothing.
The scars left behind are on the surface and below it, and because of both, Larry Nichols' heart weighs heavy.
You know, still day to day, you know, struggle with it still. My kids, when a thunderstorm rolls through, you know what I mean, they get tense. My 10-year-old definitely, he's a nervous wreck when a storm blows in or anything like that. So.
Undoubtedly, the last 180 days has taken the residents of Mayfield and Dawson Springs through every emotion. And of all the emotions he's felt,
My wife and 2 kids, we was fine, lived through it.
as long as he keeps arriving at Grateful, Larry Nichols says he'll be okay.
It's kind of mind-boggling to really think about it. Kind of feels like it's only been a few months, really. At times, you know, and at times it feels like it's been a long time, but...
The road to recovery is a journey, and how long the journey lasts is unknown. It's different for everyone. The destination for all, however, is a well-traveled heart. Jonathon Gregg, Spectrum News.
Amber, David, my original plan today was to make it to Erie, Kentucky, an unincorporated town, then make my way to Heinzman in Knott County, I believe, but I just never made it that far. Just so much destruction along the roadway. I would stop every quarter of a mile, talk to another family, a family who's lost everything, some whose entire homes were washed away, others who lost neighbors in this flooding, and again, others who lost family members. Speaking to a emergency professional down here, he says in all of his years, he's never seen flash flooding this bad.
Around every turn of Highway 476 are homes that have been destroyed by floodwater.
All the way to the ceiling.
Or the foundation where homes used to be.
And he told them they better get the National Guard out.
Judy Hudson was rescued by helicopter from her home last Thursday.
The helicopter started flying over and we was waving stuff out the windows and they come and got us.
The water was nearly waist deep on the second floor of Hudson's home. And Troublesome Creek is more than 30 yards from their front door.
He dropped a basket down to the door and we got in the basket and they took us up in the basket.
Hudson and her husband survived, but she says her older sister and neighbor died in her home a quarter mile down the road.
Well, we didn't find her that first day. They found her the next, when the water went down to where they could get to her. Her grandson and her son-in-law went down there and found her. She was in the dining room laying on the floor.
Debris hanging from tree branches 20 and 30 feet above the water give you some kind of idea how high the floodwater rose. It was a monster.
I've been doing this for 33 years as a fireman, 25 years on one of the FEMA task forces, and this is the worst I've seen for flash flooding.
Battalion Chief Jay Settergren is a FEMA task force leader from Indianapolis. Settergren says residents hardly had any time to act.
And it just came through so violently, and it was very evident to us after the 1-inch rain last night. This has gone up 6 feet today.
Which means, sadly, the risk for more flooding hasn't passed.
So going back to what the battalion chief just said, last night, Sunday night, 1 inch of rain, and then he saw Troublesome Creek rise 6 feet today. In fact, the water was going so fast today that him and the other crews from the Indiana Task Force and FEMA, they weren't in the water today, of course, still searching for folks at this hour. That's the latest here in Perry County. I'm Jonathon Gregg reporting for Spectrum News.
Jonathon, thank you. Please stay safe out there. Following the
Spectrum News 1's Jonathon Gregg is in Knott County this evening.
He joins us now live. Jonathon, good evening. What are you seeing out there on the ground in those communities?
Everything that was inside these buildings in downtown Hyndman continues to pile up on the sidewalk as no building along Troublesome Creek was spared from this historic level of flash flooding. But my day started in one county over, in Perry, learning about a husband and father and his act of heroism. As frightening as the situation was,
it was 6 foot on the inside of the house.
Brian Miller says he never panicked.
When you panic, I know I'm sounding crazy, but when you panic, it takes your thought process away and it gets you in trouble sometimes.
Nearby Troublesome Creek came up too fast Wednesday night in Erie, Kentucky, trapping his family and neighbors in the valley. Luckily, Miller moved his wife and children into the family camper just high enough up the hill.
Never, ever have we ever seen water like this.
But his neighbors were in trouble. This is a photo Miller's wife Zola took showing her husband on their neighbor's roof, about to lead them to safety. They all stayed in this camper until the floodwater went down.
You can't allow things like this to take your thinking away, to be able to still think, to be able to how to get out of the situation and not be trapped.
On Tuesday, road crews reached Erie and the Millers to clear away tons of mud.
Of course, the ceiling's coming in, the floor's buckling.
And mud is all that Jean Everidge has left.
I don't think the building can be saved structurally.
Her floral shop in Hyndman is destroyed. She's been the owner for more than 30 years.
This was such a total loss. So, and unplanned at my age, you know, when you're getting ready in a couple years to retire, you have to start over.
And at a time when so many families need comfort as they grieve, Everidge says she wishes she could do more. She's received several calls to do flower arrangements for victims of the flooding.
It's hard to realize you can't be there for someone who's hurting when you're hurting yourself. While we was trying to clean out the second day here, the funeral home called and said, "Can you do a spray?" And I said, "I don't have anything. There's nothing left."
Showing, even during times of crisis and great loss, these Kentuckians want to put others before themselves. Jean Everidge, and like so many other Kentuckians, are hurting right now. She did say two things before I left. One, she is so thankful for all the people who have come to these communities to help out in any way they can. She wants, though, to say, don't forget about them. Don't forget about them, because this is going to be an incredibly long process for recovery. They need more boots on the ground. They need reinforcements to help remove all this debris and all this mud, just like we saw in her business and just like so many other businesses and homes throughout eastern Kentucky. But that is the latest in Knott County. I'm Jonathon Gregg reporting for Spectrum News.
At least once a week for the past 6 months.
I was lucky all the way around, just went through it.
David Turner drives through downtown Mayfield.
There ain't nothing. I mean, it's just all tore up. Everything's tore up.
On this stretch of 6th Street, not much is left. Every home and building was destroyed and has since been cleared away, except for 3.
This house right here and that house right there, next door neighbor's house, and it's mine there. Well, I rented this side. I didn't rent that side. If I was on the other side, I think it would have sucked me out. I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it through it.
This is Turner on December 11th, the morning after an EF4 tornado destroyed his home.
I was laying right there in that hallway where I was laying. About, I don't know, probably 3 foot from where it blew this out. And the way I could get out of this apartment, I had to come through and go through this hole right here. Because my door was blocked in and had things stored up against it, I couldn't get out of it.
Turner has lived with his sister ever since. This home is more than a mile north from where the tornado ripped through town.
I mean, and it could have moved in my direction, you know. A tornado could have come in my direction. Very cool. I mean, all it had to do was move. Well, they said it was about a mile wide.
Turner says he wants to be on his own again, but in the wake of the tornado, there aren't many rental options in Mayfield, especially for someone living on Social Security.
I paid $450 rent.
Yeah.
But I mean, You know.
You probably not going to get that now.
I probably won't get that much now, probably more than that.
There are several homes being built a few blocks from where Turner lived for nearly 5 years. He says if rental homes do return to the downtown, that's where he'd want to be.
You want to live back down in this area?
I'd like to, yeah. I'd like to move right here. Yeah. I would love to be right here where I'm living. And I enjoyed living here. I enjoyed. Thought I was to live here till the day I died, but I didn't get to.
Turner will have to rely on family until then, knowing not everyone has that option. In Mayfield, Jonathon Gregg, Spectrum News. A drive down Highway 476 in Breathitt and Perry counties is a winding reminder of the devastation caused by July's flash flooding. The heartbreak endured is emphasized by what's left of homes, and around some corners, there is nothing left at all.
I went over that fence. I went over it and caught on my foot.
The fast-moving water tried washing Orby Campbell away and nearly succeeded, but the 75-year-old's leg got caught by his fence.
Yeah, he took my clothes off of it and everything coming down through here. There's a log got on me. I don't know how many times I went under the water, but...
Spectrum News visited his home several days later, while Campbell, a Vietnam veteran, was visiting the VA Center in Hazard.
It's just heartbreaking to look at and lose everything that was here. So
Campbell's daughter, Kimberly Terry, showed us inside.
Here's the water line.
And it was then we learned.
And he's so stubborn, he's sleeping on the front porch. He won't leave his house.
Campbell was sleeping outside in order to guard his property. He slept there for days.
About 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I sat right there from that window on the bed.
3 months later, and it's still hard to imagine how high the water was.
The first plank below the window, it was up to that one that goes across there.
Water reached the second floor of Judy Hudson's Breathitt County home. Here's where it came from. Troublesome Creek sits 10 yards below the road and 40 yards from Hudson's home, and it still got that high.
And then I called his sister, my husband's sister, and told her to keep a calling the state police and telling them we was trapped.
Cable up. Clear. They're off the ground.
The Kentucky Air National Guard rescued 19 people, many from the roofs of homes during July's historic flash flooding. Judy Hudson crawled into a basket from her second floor door.
The helicopter started flying over, and we was waving stuff out the windows, and they come and got us.
Hudson was safe, but like so many Kentuckians, suffered a great loss.
You have no idea. It's hard. And if my sister would have lived, it would have been different, you know. It wouldn't have mattered, but it's hard.
Hudson's sister died in her home just a quarter-mile down the road. And 3 months later, Hudson and her husband have yet to replace the flooring or drywall in their home, which has a strong, musty odor, though it's where Judy spends most of her day.
That's probably why I'm coughing.
Progress is slow, much like the natural current of Troublesome Creek. A few miles down 476, Campbell's home was salvaged. A volunteer group from Kansas City replaced his floors and walls. Power and plumbing has been restored as well, but Campbell lost all his appliances. His truck was flooded too.
I need a stove, washer and dryer, and stuff like that.
He shows us around, but only for a few moments. The veteran says exposure to Agent Orange during the Vietnam War has weakened his body.
I'm feeling good, just got down my hips and my legs and can't walk. Other than that, I feel real good.
If it looks like Orby Campbell and Judy Hudson have been forgotten about, in some ways they have. While they may not say it, others in eastern Kentucky do. Hudson now keeps life jackets on her second floor.
Try to make sure we've got them handy at all times.
And Campbell is sleeping on an air mattress. They are getting on the best they know how and appreciate any help they receive. And help is still needed around every corner of Highway 476. Jonathon Gregg, Spectrum News. Would you believe me if I told you this was a time machine?
Just gives me shivers to think how it must have felt.
In a St. Matthew's basement.
This is another test record, and we can try that.
That'll have to do it close enough for jug band.
A dozen curious minds and musicians are about to go way back, traveling to the very beginning of recorded sound. But first,
hello,
a test.
The Juggernaut Jug Band for the American Phonograph Society. Test 1. Let's see.
The man with the booming voice is Wyatt Marcus, one of the last mechanical phonograph technicians in the entire world. He's driven this Edison recorder 9 hours from his workshop in Rochester, New York.
So this machine will record and replicate sound, and this particular machine is from about 1905. When the diaphragm vibrates, it vibrates vertically, and it changes the cutting depth of that sapphire.
Marcus travels the country recording sound and music to wax cylinders.
He's louder here, and he was a little quieter there.
And just as it was done at the end of the 19th century.
A small piece of tick-tock history.
However, this will all be done with some 21st century flair, streaming live on TikTok.
Please share. This is only going to happen now.
In 1877, Thomas Edison invented the phonograph recorder. In 1965, Roscoe Goose Helm co-founded the Juggernaut Jug Band.
We've just been really excited about this. Just to, this whole experience about how to get this done, that's a first for all of us.
It just sort of all fell together, and here we are, from all over the country.
Boys, I think we're in the right direction.
Washboard Man by the Juggernaut Jug Band, Louisville, Kentucky, December 20th, 2022. 1, 2.
So over the course of a 4-hour session, and for perhaps the first time in history, the Juggernauts lay down a track on Edison wax. The result? Nothing less than the magic of time travel. In Louisville, Jonathon Gregg, Spectrum News.
You hear that?
No one knew how bad it was until after the sun came up.
Well, the typical sounded like a train and jumped into the hallway, and it hit, and my ears popped, and I knew everything was going to go to hell then.
Mayfield, a town of 10,000, was devastated by an EF4 tornado.
Like with any tornado, there are neighborhoods left intact, and there are neighborhoods where nothing's standing.
It would take days to count the dead.
There's no reason I should be alive. And I honestly tell you, I don't think I'll ever be the same.
I really expected to find our dog dead yesterday, and that's a miracle we found her alive.
It would take weeks to tally the damage and months to clear the debris. How long before Mayfield is healed? Will take more sunrises like this one.
The tornado come right over me.
At least, Sandra Collins says she's doing better than before. Like thousands of Kentuckians, Collins' home was destroyed by 180-mile-per-hour winds. It was one blow, precluded by another. The catastrophic storm came just a few days after Collins says her mother died from COVID.
They had her in the hospital for a month, and she never did come back out.
Collins has been grieving and living with her sister ever since.
It was like 2 weeks before the tornado hit, so
I don't think that I've experienced what I should have experienced, losing my mom and then this happening and being displaced.
The storm threw Mayfield into a housing crisis, especially for residents like Collins, who was renting. State-funded camping trailers were deployed to Mayfield, but prioritized for families with school-aged children.
I'm just waiting for my turn to get me a place.
12 months later, Collins still has hope for the future.
Okay, so this one is number 7. And we got number 6 right here.
Not only is the 58-year-old working again, she's part of a building project for low-income renters like herself.
It's starting to inspire people now because for so long we didn't have anything.
Collins says she's applied to a similar home buying program in another neighborhood.
That was your bathroom right here.
And part of that process is steady employment.
I got this job to work so I could get a home because to pay the taxes and stuff on the homes, you had to have a job. But Samaritan's Purse is the one that I'm going through to get my home.
Another reason for hope? Collins says she's 15 months sober.
My life was not a good life. I was an addict, and so I changed my life around 15 months ago. My life is good now.
It's been 1 year since Sandra Collins lost her mom, and 1 year since she lost her home. Every day she works to rebuild her life.
I know God is sending this to me.
And every sunrise, it gets a little better.
Kentuckians are definitely going to remember this polar plunge for a long time, especially for those who have only been here a few years. This is certainly the coldest they've ever felt in the Commonwealth.
The brutal cold made for bad driving conditions Friday, limiting the bite of road salt. Finding dividing lines was a guessing game near downtown, and side streets are completely covered. The best Mike Sullivan can do is clear the ice off his windshield.
This is extremely cold for Louisville. It's unexpected.
There's only a few other times this lifelong resident remembers weather this cold.
In '89, we had 15 inches of snow, and it got as low as 35, 37 below at night with wind chill, very similar to this.
Bardstown Road is a hodgepodge of open, not open, or businesses getting a late start. Keefe's Hardware open.
We're there to have the ice melt and the snow shovels and stuff. It's kind of a hardware store thing. So if you're the one providing those things, you have to be open to provide those things to people. But thankfully, a lot of us live really close, so we can just walk in.
Shiraz opening later than usual. Monty Hussein volunteered to lay down salt while his wife preps for lunch.
This has definitely been the coldest that I've ever seen it been. It actually feels a lot worse than it looked like it was going to feel. So
on Eastern Parkway.
Oh, it's not ready to go yet. It's still ice. It's an ice block.
Tom Brown is thawing out his ride.
A few times it shimmied and it didn't want to go, but it did.
Brown says some of his neighbors lost power Thursday night and credits utility crews for getting them back on the grid as quickly as possible.
It's cold out here. Those guys are getting power on to everybody. We had a line fall off. The power was out to a few people down the way, so they just put it up.
With only 2 days left until Christmas, we were bound to find a few last-minute shoppers.
I've been here for 10 years, and it's only experienced this once before, and I absolutely love it. I know there's hazards and dangers, but we're getting out today, and we're having a great old look around.
If you must be out, plan ahead. Take things slow, and let a friend know where you're going so they can check in on you. In Louisville, Jonathon Gregg, Spectrum News.